This is called Jesus Matters Most, not the Barbarians, not the Pharisees. And I say that because we live in America, or I live in America, but we have American laws that are good. I like the American laws, not all of them. I don't like the medicine laws. I don't like, but I like our Constitution that defines us as one human race. Well, the Declaration of Independence does that, and I like our Constitution protecting the freedom of speech and private property rights and doing so. Basically, I don't agree. Haven't met that many friendly Americans when it comes to believing in the freedom of speech, and that includes Republicans and Democrats. And uh, I haven't had a lot of good. I've had a lot of good experiences, but I've had mostly bad experiences in America with. And I've grown up here. I was born here. How many generations that my family has lived here is many. I don't know the whole story, but I have. So I am an American citizen, but I'm really been treated like I'm not an American citizen for most of the part. And uh, I've also been treated. I'm not. I'm a person who's uh, strangely a person in a sense that tries to be responsible, but I've been irresponsible. So I'm hated. I'm probably one of your friendliest people. Love my neighbor. Don't steal. Don't hurt people. I forgive easy and all that. And some people in my family and stuff wouldn't agree with that necessarily, but I'm not happy with them at times. It's easy for me to get upset with them after 40 years of not getting along. We'll put it like that. And so I can easily lose temper with my family. But other than that, I don't have, I'm very good at, I just don't get mad at people I have no reason to be mad at, or not much reason, right? So I have a lot of patience with people who weren't taught well, who were not taught love your neighbor and those kind of things. And I have patience with them, but I don't have as much patience with people I know who were taught to love your neighbor and all those things, and just continue to hate their neighbors. So that's part of it. And I grew up in a family that was around that sound kind of teaching. I won't say, I would say I grew up around people who taught holiness all the time, not love your neighbor. But the truth is, so there's a lot of confusion. Holiness really is more geared towards loving your neighbor, not what everybody, not being the most responsible person in the world. That's part of holiness. That's one facet of holiness, but that's not the main one. The main one is love your neighbor, love God. The main one is love your God first, but love your neighbor. And so those are the top two commandments Jesus taught us. But Jesus matters most. It doesn't matter what people's standards are and what they think and all that. Doesn't matter. I mean, I'm a person who, look, people still want to judge me by their standards. I'm like, get away from me. I mean, we live in two different worlds. I will never be able to be 20 years old again and start over and make different decisions. And I'm not sure, there's a lot of decisions I wouldn't want to make because we have a segregated society. And I don't believe in completely being rid of one side of society and having no regard for one side of society. I think we should teach love, God's love, to all sides of society, right? So, especially in our segregated society, I think we should protect people's property from theft in both sides of society. Not the you got the drug-free side of society and the side of society that does not want a drug-free society. And that's not because they don't want a drug-free society. It's because the cartels enslave those neighborhoods, right? And it's not just a few neighborhoods. It's half the city in every city pretty much in America. So you got, you know, there's a lot of anger that goes around for people who are not necessarily players and that those the poor areas, I guess you said, they usually take over poor areas and they're working on the rich areas now, right? Or they're working on a lot of areas. So um, it, it always seems that I have to describe and explain why I say what I say, and I didn't mean to take this long, but Jesus matters most. I've fallen into lots of temptations and of just being taking a chance and thinking, okay, this person might be nice or whatever, and I've done myself. I've had I don't agree with. I think we should have the freedom to be a scientist, and I don't respect our drug laws. I don't. And when it comes down to it, I do respect them in a sense. I do. I don't push people to do illegal drugs or anything. I don't do that because I don't want to push somebody into something that could get them in trouble, even if it's a bad law. So even if it's a sabotage law, I wouldn't say it's a bad law all the way. I'd call it sabotage law on purpose. That most of our society, who are mostly Pharisees nowadays, they're Pharisee because they believe that sobriety is God, and money is God, and sobriety helps you have money, and that's what matters in society. And we judge everybody by, okay, if they lost a phone, if they lost their license, then they're worthless. And so they'll support a killer. They'll say, well, you shouldn't have let somebody steal your phone. And they say, die for it, and kill them over it. And I agree. In some situations, you should protect yourself. Some stores will teach you if they're stealing stuff to let them have the stuff instead of getting killed over it, and then catch them later, right? When you have a team to help catch, right? But sometimes, though, you stand your ground and you stand up for yourself, and sometimes they back down, right? I agree with that. But if you're in a precarious kind of situation or a manipulated situation where you're around medicine, like if they made coffee illegal because it has caffeine and that's a drug, and so they make coffee illegal, and then you're around people that are drinking coffee and you decide you want some of that coffee, man. And then, but they're allowed to steal from you because and the police can't help you. You can't do anything about it. So they decide they're going to steal from you. Do you fight for that and go to jail or whatever, or be sent to rehab and have everything taken away from you over that situation, or do you let them get your stuff? I was about to say something I usually don't say. SH. I almost did it, and some people think I would go to hell for that. I don't believe that. So Jesus matters most. We'll just go back to that. I'll get off the other subject, but I don't believe in fighting when you're in a compromised situation. Most of the time, you try to keep the peace and hope to see tomorrow. And so you can share knowledge and understanding like I'm doing now, which some people hate. Most people in the church hate this knowledge and understanding. They think it's unholy. Yeah, stay away from all appearance of evil. So if I go for them and stay away from all appearance of evil, I'm never trying to talk to another human being again because they're all evil. That's all they have. You don't even go near the appearance of evil. Well, I would view all people as having the appearance of evil, something because they have a stomach, and they can be tempted by their stomach, even if they have diabetes, to do too much sugar, and they risk dying. That's kind of suicidal because you'd rather not control your appetite and die. And guess what? I could call that the appearance of evil, but we're all tempted with it. We're all human. So, I mean, I agree with stay away from. I don't think that's the number one law in the book. I think we're supposed to walk in the Spirit and try not to fulfill the lust of the flesh, and walk in the Spirit and stay away from appearances of evil in our mind, partly so we don't, like if we're stereotyping somebody in our mind, then that's the appearance of evil. And we're supposed to look past a stereotype and show the love of God to them. Doesn't mean we can't be cautious and stay away from temptation and those things. And we're supposed to do that. And so I think that's mostly in our minds, but that we're battling, walking in the Spirit and not in the flesh. But we're supposed to love our neighbors. So I can't finish that thought because I got to finish at 10 minutes. I mean, that's my rule right now. But yeah, you got to do. So Jesus matters most. I believe in Jesus, no matter what sins I've done. I'm not pursuing sin. I've never done that. Some people think I do, but frankly, I've pursued good things. I've tried to talk to people, and most people in the world today don't want to have a conversation about God or anything else. And then, for the 1,000 times I've done that, there's 3 times I'll give, or maybe 1 time when I'll finally give in to whatever temptation. And people want to define me by that and say, I don't believe in Jesus. Well, no. If I fell at one point or another, it's not because I didn't believe in Jesus. It's because I rationalized thinking that this is a stupid law. right at the last minute, I rationalize that. It's not pre-planned. I've had what you call relapses on in a sense, a relapse on a Tylenol. I'm just saying that to be PG here, but I've had relapses on things that I think it's no big deal. It's not much worse than Tylenol. It's not any worse than Tylenol if they would make the legal form of it. And this is all you have. And so Tylenol works for me sometimes, by the way. And so does aspirin, and for a bad knee, for blood clot. I have a knee that rubs together and it can cause a blood clot in my calf. So I've done those NSAIDs and things more than I would want to. But and I know the science of it, and I don't. And the Bible does not say it's a sin to take care of your body and use medicine and just expect a miracle from God. I've been able to walk. I've been able to travel on foot with ease sometimes because I used ibuprofen and aspirin, and I know to use it with food on my stomach. I know all these things, and I know things just like that about medicines God created that are evolutionists, I would say, made illegal or talked everybody into making illegal as a sabotage to steal private property rights for communist regimes. And Republicans have fallen for it. But I'll just say, look, I'm not a part of anybody's world. My God, you could call it irresponsible if you want to, but I've been responsible in how I treat people overall. I mean, somebody could pick on, okay, I lost my temper, 4 times in my life that were obvious. And secretly, privately, I've lost my temper a few more times than that with the same people I lost my temper with openly. But it was not without an agitator. But however, so I feel bad about that because that's the one thing I'm good at, not losing my temper. And as far as being responsible and caring about money in certain situations, I don't care about money. I'm like, money doesn't matter. I'll see tomorrow. I just need to see tomorrow. If I'll give money up to save my life. I've done that. And so people think I'm a coward or whatever else, but I've also protected money and taken chances at times. And it's true that people backed off and didn't bother me with it. And that's times where I was not in a precarious or manipulative situation that was set up by the government, by sabotage, by bad laws. It wasn't. So in those situations, when I know I'm in my rights, and I'm on my turf and this and that, I do stand up for my stuff and protect myself. But when I'm in somebody else's turf and they're the boss at that place, and American laws don't matter, love your neighbor laws, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, doesn't matter. It's a tyranny, though. They're allowed to steal from you, they're allowed to harm you, but you're not allowed to do that to them over in their turf and territory. So it's like that's tyranny. And so it's a tyrannical regime if you're in a poor neighborhood and surrounded by gangs. And that's mostly what we have. I mean, you got to be, let's be real. I believe my attitude is this, and I've had police stop me before. I believe, and I'd be like, it's a free country, right? I walk wherever I want to. And some people say, you can't walk here, you can't go there. And I've chosen to walk those places anyway. And because I was politically thinking political, and I'm like, I'm going to exercise my rights, and I'm going to befriend some of these people because you've isolated them too. Now that they're choosing to be isolated, they're choosing to isolate themselves because they're being taken over by greedy people who are trying to enslave them and get all their money, right? So that would mean they have victims and slaves there. And so it's nice for them to be able to see people from the outside, I would say, now and then, especially somebody who believes in God, even if they don't have a chance to talk about that. So I don't. That's my view. It's America. It's a free country. I can contest that. I'm allowed to contest the laws. I'm allowed to say that Jesus matters most, even if you think that my life doesn't measure up. I'm not that perfect person, and all this stuff, which is a Pharisee way of thinking. And Pharisees are not real Christians. They believe that their works save them, and not Jesus. It's not Jesus that saves them. It's not grace that saves them. It's not his forgiveness. What good is his forgiveness if he's not powerful as God? Only God's forgiveness matters because he's the only perfect one. Only God's forgiveness matters because he's the one that can rise from the dead and has the power over life. And ultimately, only his forgiveness matters. But we're supposed to forgive as he forgave, and extend his forgiveness to other people, and let his spirit show through forgiveness. And that is walking in the spirit, and that is walking in holiness. And so it doesn't matter what sin you did, because everybody has a sin that they've done. They have a sin that they battle. And it's not that you get saved and you're perfect. God doesn't get rid of our stomachs. You battle whatever temptations are out there that appeal to you. And Jesus doesn't act like, oh, that's sick and nasty. His view on that stuff is, we want to hate the fact that we fell for it. We hate the sin that steals from us. We hate those sins because they do steal from us. In that sense, we should hate sin. But he admits, pleasure is good. It's fun for a season, but it only lasts for a season, right? It's good for a time, but only lasts for a season. God admits that. It's fun. But so, for instance, it's fun to be, if you're a man and you're attracted to a woman, and you're a woman who's attracted to men, and you're single, it's fun to, if you're getting into the romantic view of things and enjoying each other's personalities and whatever you think is beautiful about them, whether you think being handsome is beautiful or pretty is beautiful. So women are pretty, men are handsome, basically, right? So you have if that's your view. So you get into that outside of marriage and you're not looking for a committed relationship, it can be fun to you for a little while, but it's not good. Even though it seems good, it seems okay. A lot of times it's not what God planned for us. It's not what he told us to do. So God is not saying that's gross and sick and all this stuff. He says it's fun for a season, but it is in the big scheme of things. It's grotesque because you're cheating on God. It's grotesque because you're breaking other relationships. It's grotesque because you're not seeking the Spirit. You're loving pleasure, you're worshiping the creation more than the Creator. So you're not worshiping the Creator, you're worshiping the creation and the pleasures of life, right? So, and that only lasts for a season, and in the end, we all die. In the end, we all have sickness. At some point, I know people that say, I've never been sick in my life. And they judge and hate people who get sick, or who catch a cold, or who have ever been tired. I've never been tired in my life. I see that a lot, and I'm like thinking, baloney, because I've probably outran most people, or out hiked most people, lost more sleep than most people, and still was able to function. I've done that. I've been in situations like that. I've been homeless, and I've been the guy that walks all day and all night to stay out of trouble. I've walked 3 miles to use a restroom. I'll do those kind of things, and most people don't. I can tell you most people don't, and then a lot of those people that don't are the ones judging people out. There's homeless people out there judging, saying, I've never done this before. I've never done that before. They're doing it just like what I call rich people do. And so Jesus matters most. I mean, faith matters. So faith is what matters. It's not how good I've done in following my faith, how well I've done in keeping certain standards. Faith matters. Do I believe in Jesus? Am I telling the truth? Of course, I believe in Jesus, whether I failed or not, whether it looks like it or not. He doesn't look like he's a Christian because he sinned or whatever. Well, faith matters. I don't believe in Allah. Faith is what matters. I don't believe in Buddha. I don't trust in Buddha for eternal life. I don't trust that Buddha has the power, or the Hindu gods. I don't trust in any other gods, except that Jesus showed us the power to rise from, that he has the power to rise from the dead, to overcome, to forgive, and I can move on. And so the whole point is, so why should I keep talking? Why should I be allowed to talk? Everybody they've always wanted to say you're not allowed to talk, whether it was because I was a student and you have to let the adults talk. You have to let the teachers talk. You got to let your elders talk. You can't talk. Whether I grew up in a church that thinks you have to be qualified and perfect before you're allowed to speak, God ordains you by faith when you believe in Jesus to speak faith in Jesus. And it doesn't mean you can go and sin, but these people they're holding people to a standard of perfection that some things aren't even sin. It's not a sin to drink a beer. It's not. It's just, but it's a higher calling to not drink a beer, so that you don't offend certain people that don't understand that, and so you can win more people. So it can affect your ability to communicate and to be able to share Christ if you weren't able to stay pure and holy. But you're pure and holy before God as long as you're asking forgiveness, as long as you're battling yourself, your temptations. So your faith and what matters, and why does that matter? Well, somebody thinks you're worthless if you continue to fall in this stuff. But usually there is a distinguishment. I don't think it's true that you're not going to continue to fall, or that you might be in a situation where you fall into temptation and depression and everything else, right? Depression can be, I don't know, that's not always a sin either. But if you staying down, if you can't find joy in God and hope in God and studying, and we have so many tools to study today, and I've used those tools. And but I have ideals and failures that I knew I planned to do this with my life and that, and I failed at it. Never was patient enough to stick it out, right? So, lost patience to stick it out and never hit a lot of my goals. So, I wasn't patient enough to wait for the right woman, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of come back to bite me and hurt me a lot, because every time I see somebody I think I might like, and I'm like, I'm 50, about to be 53, and I've been too irresponsible for it to even go to take somebody on a date, to have any means to take somebody on a date, frankly. So but not just that, I have to explain how irresponsible I've been and where I'm at, and what father would give their hand in marriage to somebody like that, like me? Not almost none, right? And so, you know what? Gangs and people like that, they play the father, and the father figure, and they talk women out of speaking to me, right? And women go for that. But now women, I'm friends with a lot of women and acquaintances in passing, and most of them they like me. They like the fact that I'm respectful and polite and mind my business, and I stay away from people and let them have their space, whether it's men or women. And but at times I still see somebody I think we might be a match. They've been through stuff I've been through, and I look for people who have been through similar situations as me. And it's not just that I'm irresponsible. I've put myself around people who are not just irresponsible, but who will steal from you, who will hurt you. And I've been robbed a lot in life. So I have a different story. I've come from a different world, though. I'm not listening to, I look at people like they're a bunch of freaks, not freaks, but barbarians. Pharisaical barbarians from the successful side of society, if they're still trying to get me to go all the way back 30 years and be the person I could have been 30 years ago, that's impossible. There's no miracle that could happen that does that. I never had children, and I wanted them. I was a guy that wanted to have, at 16, I wanted to have children, get married early, skip college, build houses, and I wanted to see my great grandkids. But after I was assaulted at a certain time, while in college, not at the college, but in the city I lived in at the college town, I was assaulted, and that changed my trajectory. And so it opened my eyes to the segregated society we have, and I felt like it ruined my reputation. So that's, most people it wouldn't affect that way, but it affected me that way, right? So from there on, I was more interested in studying the segregated side of society, and feeling like we've made a slave out of them by our Phariseeism. Because I grew up on the Pharisee side of society. They don't. I've had told people that, and they're like, Pharisees don't exist anymore, and they don't acknowledge it. But I'm like, you still hate people because they use a medicine. We call it drugs, an illegal drug. and you've allowed whatever happens to them to happen to them just because they use a drug. In other words, they're allowed to be robbed. They're allowed to be stolen from. They're allowed to have all their private property rights taken away. You're allowed to make them be homeless, and all this based on the fact that you've never used a drug in your life. And that's the only standard of holiness you live by, almost, except for perfect attendance and all these kind of things. That's with jobs and with churches and with keeping your name and keeping it. So you got a really high standard for somebody having a good name, but it doesn't really include walking in the Spirit. That's a rejection of the Spirit. So there's a lot of tricks people fall for, and I'm not going to say everybody's rejected the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, but they're not walking in temperance at all. They're just judging people by all these high standards. And it turns out to be a money standard if you're going to keep making money. So what matters most is that you believe in Jesus and that he loves everyone, whether it's a person who appears to be a drug addict or not, whether it's somebody who can't keep a license, can't keep a phone or not. That's not God's standard of holiness. When you've allowed for a thieving society, a whole side of society to thrive in theft, and you've promoted it based on segregating everybody by a simple medication that could actually be made into a safe medication form to put out the people who do bad business with making it the strongest forms of it, and who do bad business by loving the manipulation and sabotage of the laws that segregate everybody, and by realizing, look, so that's psychological warfare. We're falling for all these tricks, and we're rejecting Jesus the whole time, rejecting him. What matters is faith, what your faith is in. It's not how you carry out your faith that matters the most. How you carry out your faith helps you build rewards in heaven. How you carry out your faith helps save people from hell. How you carry out your faith, if you're carrying it properly, I'm saying, helps you to let you walking in forgiveness and walking in the Spirit, and you're denying those temptations. You're running from temptation. It doesn't mean that you're going to run from temptation and you're going to be so perfect that you're never tempted with that again. Sometimes it does, because we have habits. We're habitual. So you do that long enough, and that might not be a temptation to you anymore at some point. And that's not a miracle. It's a time thing that healed you from having to rely on that habit. But on the other hand, it's like eating spinach. I like to say, you don't want to try medicines and all these things, because the truth is, it's not about addiction. We've got lies about addiction, but it's like eating spinach. If you never eat it, you'll never miss it. But if you liked the spinach, at some point you're going to think about it. You're going to think about eating it, and there's nothing wrong with eating spinach. And if you know much about the Bible, Proverbs 31 shows there's nothing wrong with taking a medicine if you need a medicine. But so that people can rationalize and be tempted at the last minute by that, even though it's a good thing. It's true. It's like, I want to take this, and it's a crazy law, and I need a break from all these mean people. All I ever hear is unkind things and false judgments, false stereotyping, people calling me lazy when I've done way more work than they have all week. I've had to walk 20, 30 miles just to brush my teeth. And, just stay away from trouble all day. I'm running from people and police. That's if somebody's homeless. And they're walking all day and then they finally sit down, and people look at them and say they've been sitting there all day. And that's all they do is sit there. The truth might be for some. Now, some do that, can't help it. But there's others that they just finally got to sit down because they just didn't want to be caught sitting down anywhere all day long. So people go through all that, and people act like they don't do anything. They don't do any work. But you've taken all their resources away to do the kind of work that you're talking about. Really, you're so judgmental, our society is, they don't realize, even if somebody does work, like somebody like me who's done more work than anybody in the history of the world, perhaps, because of the ability of the internet. I did for a while when I was stranded. I used the internet and did all this work, and I'm thinking, man, look at all this work I'm doing. And everybody's saying I'm not working because I didn't get paid for it. So it doesn't count as work because I'm not getting paid for it. But I did more work than everybody else did because they had to go check into their jobs, get paid, and be accountable to this one person and could only do one job. And I was doing hundreds of jobs at once on the internet. Anyway, but they were all charity jobs. They were all free. I'm going to finish before 30 minutes Jesus matters most. You have faith in the fact that you trust God for eternal life through Jesus. That's what matters.